Hello, fellow researchers. This is Mark Center on September 4th, 2012. Instead of shipping off this DVD to all you folks, I thought I would just take the important parts off of it, save me time, effort, and money, and just get the information out there. This is an interview that was done in a videotape called Alien from Area 51. The alien autopsy footage revealed. And on the back it says, now Ray Santilli and Gary Schofield reveal all, including the truth about the sinister men in black invading their lives, how the Chinese knew about the original footage, their beliefs in alien visitation to the planet Earth, how governments around the globe are dealing with the phenomenon, and the genetic mutation of humankind. And basically it says it's starring Ray Santilli and Gary Schofield. This was put out by Reality Films, 71 minutes. You can go to reality-entertainment.com. Their tagline is "Reality is what you make it." Yeah, that's about it. It came out in between 2010 and 2011. I found it at the Walmart, just like the Ant and Dec film that I found there, and I bought a copy, went back, and they pulled it off the shelf for some reason, and I couldn't get an answer. There was one of these there, and I haven't seen another one since. So without further ado, here's what I edited together. Their movie making process is a little bit annoying with graphics and sound and this and that. So I didn't edit out any of what Ray and Gary said at all. I just put it together in a more brief format. That's it, and we'll be talking soon, I'm sure. Thank you very much.
We came across the footage originally in 92, 93. We were involved in making a documentary for Polygram at the time. It was a documentary about Elvis, and it was really before Google had come along and you had the ability to search for archived material. And what we did at the time was post ads in local papers around the eastern seaboard of America, because we were looking for people that had seen Elvis in 1954, 55, and so in 92 we posted these ads saying that if you had any footage or took any footage or any still images in 1954, 55 of Elvis on stage, we'd be interested, and we had cash, and we were just on tour, if you like, picking up photographs, footage, and anything Elvis related.
Right. So you were both out there doing that?
Yeah. Yes, we both went. I went on behalf of Polygram. Ray went on behalf of himself as an independent.
Well, I was retained by you guys.
He helped us to put it together, and we went to several different places, Cleveland being probably...
And Cleveland is where we came across the cameraman, and he supplied us with, I think, probably what we believe to be really unique footage of Elvis on stage, and that formed a very important part of the Elvis documentary we made at the time.
Right.
But after we purchased the footage of the cameraman, he simply later on in the day, early evening, sort of knocked on the door and said, "Would you be interested in something else?" And that's how the alien autopsy story kicked off.
Approached Ray directly, not me, and took Ray away with him. And Ray said, "I've got to go away for a few days."
Take me away with him.
Well, he beamed him up, and but he did take. They left Cleveland and went off, and I stayed back. And Ray was a little cagey at the time because I don't think he was sure what he was getting into.
No, it was a commercial opportunity. We had no. I mean, at that time, Roswell wasn't a household name. We knew nothing of ufology at all.
Right.
And when looking at this footage and hearing his story, funny enough, one of the first phone calls was to Philip Mantle, because I asked my office to find out who's the authority on ufology or UFOs, and Philip at the time was working with one of the organisations, Bufora, and I called Philip in, and he explained the story of Roswell to me. So and of course I told him what we had come across, and then from that there was a whole roller coaster, because most of the dignitaries in the UFO community were knocking on their door, wanting to see us, wanting to see the footage, and wanting to purchase the footage.
And Philip Mantle remembers all this.
Oh yeah. I mean, we had, as I say, every dignitary in the UFO world knocking on our door, right down to meetings in London hotels where people were offering, brown paper bags with cash in there for our footage, and we just simply said no. But the problem is, the moment we said no, the line was drawn in the sand, and they became the enemy. So every time we turned up on TV or doing anything with the footage, they were there to debunk it. But initially, they wanted to buy it. They were totally convinced that it was genuine and it was exciting. But obviously, because they're not involved, or they weren't involved, they took the opposite position afterwards.
And also, I think they resented the fact that neither Ray nor I had any background in that thing, and Ray was very much involved in music. I was involved in video, and for two guys to come across something like this, which for them would have been the Holy Grail, I think Ray's quite right. When they couldn't do a deal with us, it was either you're with us or against us, and they ended up being against us. But it's also worth mentioning that it took quite a long time from when Ray saw the footage to when he actually acquired it. It wasn't all done big bang volume one.
No. I mean, there was a good year and a half between first seeing the footage and getting the footage into the UK.
You had to raise finance, didn't you?
Well, finance was the issue, but there were a couple of problems, and I know it sort of seems we had a lot of fun over, with regard to the story, but when I first saw the film, those canisters were open for the first time in 50 years, and they were sealed. And when I saw the film, with the projector slid it up to the side of the wall, we didn't even have a screen, and we just saw it on a plain wall and saw the footage that know as Alien Autopsy. But in the year and a half after, because the air reacted with the acetate with the film material, by the time we got the film back into the UK, because we hadn't seen the film again since that first viewing, by the time we got the film back into the UK, it was being stripped off as it was going through the projector. It was just all coming off, and
How did you feel?
Gutted. Good word.
Well, because it was one of those things. It's like it's the worst that could happen, but you can't change it. It's happened. So
did you not have that terrible gut-wrenching feeling?
Well, no. I mean, we went into the sort of we went into sort of lockdown mode. How do we save it? And the only way we could really do that was to get the film and stick them in clamps and then take stills, and then and it was a very slow process to try and to save what we had. Okay.
But it's fair to say he's right from the point of view when it arrived and you opened the tins and there was that funny smell, and then you did have a look on your face of, oh my god, and it wasn't a matter of being cheated, because I don't think we ever thought even he knew what he'd done to the film by exposing it to the air.
It's more the fact,
I mean, to be
this
honest,
is something the world should have.
Yes.
And oh my god, it's gone.
But we work in an industry where a lot of things go wrong, and it was just one of those things, and it was, we knew that there was a problem, and we're both professional enough in our own industry to know that we've got to salvage what's there, and we did have a very good team of people, so we were able to salvage a certain amount of the imagery, and then we took on the responsibility of restoring it, or some people say faking it, or whatever, but we believe that what we did was restoration. And and I liken it to exactly what goes on in most of the major art galleries around the world. I mean, if you look at Leonardo's Last Supper, I mean, there isn't any of that paint up there that he put on there. It's been repainted so many times over 200-300 years. At one time it had a whole door knocked through it.
Am I right in thinking that there are actually some frames in there that are original?
Yes, there are.
Because some of the film was saved intact. It wasn't all.
And the thing
shot
about
images.
it, we are.
You spliced those.
Yeah, we added those into the.
But we are commercial. Okay, so for us, it was a commercial opportunity, and what we did at the time was we constructed a marketing campaign, which I think outside of Live Aid was the largest TV event in the world. Okay, we were able to embargo all broadcasters until one time, one day, 28th of August 1995, and the campaign to protect the film, get it delivered on time, get it broadcast on time, was huge, and it was the whole thing was a commercial exercise, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the original film itself did exist, that the cameraman is real, and that what we did really was a restoration. When you get dignitaries in the world of special effects like Stan Winston, who probably is one of the greatest, you know, he did that Alien and all of those movies.
Predator.
For him to turn around on screen and say, we couldn't do that, we can't do that, you know, either it's the greatest fake or hoax in history, or it's real. You know, for him to actually say that on camera, you know, was just a testament to the skills and you know, the people that we use. The roller coaster of events in '95 was far darker than the Anton Decker movie that portrayed, you know, which is a comedy, because at the time we were being not only chased by the UFO community, but you know, we had
we were stalked by nutters, we had death threats.
Yeah, offices broken into, homes broken into, cars broken into. You know, we had dignitaries from, you know, various different governments fly over to see the film.
I think it's actually important to mention that when we'd finished the restoration, the first people I recall seeing it were the Chinese,
yeah.
And they came to our office, and I think there were 4 of them. They all came with official papers from the government.
Yeah.
They were scientists, and they wanted to look at the footage. And it was the first time that we had really shown anybody of any significance, or should I say, authority or education, the restored footage. And their instant response was,
"Seen it before?
You've got the same the Americans have got."
Yeah.
So it told us that what we had, the original footage was real, that we had done an extremely good job of restoring it, because of course after that it came under intense scrutiny from everybody, and no one was ever able to find anything in that footage that was not for real, because it was absolutely based on the real footage that Ray had. And it was when the Chinese said what they said that we looked at each other and thought, we've got something serious here, and this is a serious situation. And we had all the Argentinians, like, well,
Yeah,
South
Africans came over. I mean, the Americans flew us out. You know, a whole array of secret squirrels in America had a good look at the footage
and laughed, because they were caught in a very difficult position, because we got
talking about government.
Yes,
totally.
Because we were invited to the Pentagon and shown the footage, and they laughed. And
Seriously?
Absolutely.
You went to the Pentagon?
We didn't. One of our team.
We went to Washington originally, and they actually put us up in the Watergate Hotel, which was wonderful, flown out first class, and we went to a number of different meetings with different people within the forces and Secret Service or whatever. Everyone wanted to see the footage. So, you know, it was really interesting, because for us that level of interest in our film just added so much more credence to the whole story and everything else. And of course, at that time, everyone was wanting to know who the cameraman is, and it became this huge sort of cat and mouse game. People trying to intercept our messages, find
him, trace our calls. The guy at Channel 4, when they did the documentary, they were particularly keen to find him. And I think it's worth mentioning that when he sold the footage, the reason he sold it to Ray and not anybody else was because Ray was English, and he honestly thought that once he'd sold it, he'd never hear another word about it. You know, it was very naive, bless him. And I was in Ray's office the day after the show had gone out on Fox for the very first time, and he was screaming down the phone at Ray because he obviously flicking the channels, and all of a sudden, plus I think Fox announced they were offering $1 million to anyone who'd find him, and he crapped himself, for want of a better phrase, and was very scared and absolutely furious with Ray, although Ray had done nothing wrong. But he just got it in his mind that once he sold it,
I don't think he ever expected the film to come back into the US, and so, you know,
or attract the level of interest that it did, because it was the first show in the history of Fox they ever had to show twice in the same week due to public demand. We believe it remains to this day their highest rated ever documentary.
Well, they showed it 3 times in 1 week.
Yeah, it was just outright. The coverage, it just went bang, and it was all over the media. And of course, he was scared stiff, so we had to go find another cameraman.
But the Secret Service never actually got hold of the cameraman.
Oh, no,
not that we're aware of. No.
I think they took the view, and I think that was portrayed quite well in the Ed Sedek movie. They took the view that let us carry on because no one would believe us, and I think so they
were caught in a rock and a hard place.
Yeah.
They couldn't make any comment for or against it.
Well, if they had done anything to stop us, it would have added so much more credibility to the whole UFOs. You know,
it's kind of a usual ploy, isn't it? They use just full of little green men, and people just.
Yeah, so and they couldn't obviously come out and deny it, because then it'd be, you're denying it. So they couldn't win, really. So going after the cameraman actually wasn't really in their interest, unless, of course, the media did find him, and then it all became a lot more serious because they could track his military record and so on and so forth. But we managed to put them off the scent of the cameraman pretty fast, so we protected his anonymity.
Have you never tempted to really hoax something else again? Sorry, not again.
No, we didn't hoax that.
Hoax something for the first time.
If we wanted
to, did a good job.
But if we wanted, we could have had a lot of fun with the subject, and we could have rolled in, maybe, other campaigns. But the most important thing is that the first one wasn't a hoax; it was a restoration, and all we would have done is devalue, I think, the footage that we had by get involved in something else.
Even to the point, actually, it's worth making a point that, I don't know about Ray, but I've advised people on various other documentaries and programs in this area, and I've actually told them not to put my name on it because I don't want to in any way affect people's view of their program because of my background. But I think it's a very, very important point to make is Ray and I never sat down in a room ever in our lives and thought, can we come up with a little stroke of genius to have a laugh with the rest of the planet? Had he not have been approached by the cameraman in Cleveland and gone off to see him, we would not be sitting here today. And there is nothing in the world that will ever get him to change that view, that position, or anything as it's.
But as businessmen, have you never put the word out to try and find more?
We've been inundated with so much material, not just with aliens, but every conspiracy theory you could possibly imagine. And again, because of the alien autopsy, our involvement in those projects is slightly difficult because of the credibility issue.
And some we just wouldn't.
I can tell you, we're actually working on a project at the moment which is more remarkable than alien autopsy, and it's a really, really serious project. But how to get it to market without contamination, is an issue.
I see what you mean, yeah.
I've got footage at home from the girl who had the close encounter, who's no longer with us, that she gave me, that she shot herself from the window 2 weeks before she had the encounter, of an alien craft in the sky with something inside moving around that's definitely not human, which I've got and I have been unable to use because of various problems since she passed away. But I have the footage, I've seen it. 1 or 2 experts have seen it. They've seen the craft before, but they've never seen the thing moving around inside, which is amazing. So things do come up, and also hoaxes, rumours. I've got this, which turns out to be that, and various other things.
An interesting thing did happen in '95 when we went public with the footage. As I said earlier, just let everybody that had anything relating to a conspiracy or aliens would knock on our door and they say, would you help us market this? But the most interesting were from former military and airline pilots. And we had police, and we had some very credible people come with photographs and statements and footage and so forth. A lot of it we haven't touched. And the reason, again, is because there's no point in us going down that route at the moment. You know, maybe at some stage later on in life we'll license it on to another company.
And it's, you can't really catch lightning in a bottle. We had our moments, we did what we did, and we're very proud that we were able to bring it to the world and for people to see. And they don't want to believe, that's entirely up to them. We've never forced anybody to believe anything, but it is something that we're proud, certainly very proud of, and also, probably more than Ray, I believe in very strongly. I believe there is other things out there, and whether the public can handle it or not, that's another story.